Wow. Every time I think there can't be a more unbelievable fact about the Switch's success in terms of sales, I get proven wrong again. Even if you account for inflation, the overall net profit of Nintendo and the Switch era trumps their history over the past 35 years in the console business. Nintendo's just dropped their latest updates on sales of Switch hardware and games, and I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the more notable ones. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues to further expand its lead as the best-selling game on the system, and further pushes itself up there when it comes to the best-selling games ever. And if you combine Deluxe's sales with the vanilla game on Wii U, MK has officially shipped 70 million units. It's the best-selling game in the series by miles, and that 70 million number, though it's probably not going to quite catch it, is setting it up to be very close to the reported sales of Wii Sports, an absolutely unreal accomplishment for a Wii U port. The big Mario and Zelda games of last year continue to climb the charts, with Tears of the Kingdom entering the top 10, and Wonder jumping up to number 18, with 20.61 and 13.44 million units sold respectively. Kirby and the Forgotten Land has now extended its lead as the best-selling game in the series, now at 7.52 million units. Princess Peach Showtime and the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake both sold over 1 million since their launch, which leads us to the big number I want to talk about. There are now 67 known first-party Switch titles that have sold over 1 million units, with 21 of them crossing 10 million. The Switch now sits at lifetime hardware sales of 141.32 million units and software sales of 1.235 billion. Absolutely wild numbers. Let's compare that recent news to some other recent news in the gaming industry. From Microsoft, where they announced even more layoffs as they're closing more studios, most notably Arcane Austin, developers of Redfall, and Tango Gameworks, who developed one of the fan-favorite games of last year, Hi-Fi Rush. Microsoft's closures are seemingly yet another continuation of a common pattern in the industry. A big name buying a smaller studio, getting some games out of them, before cutting them loose. Especially with Microsoft, this has been a very concerning trend that has caused massive outrage, and was, at least for me, the last nail in the coffin of me having any hope of them being a serious threat in the industry. These layoffs highlight a major issue when it comes to the higher-ups in the industry. If the profits aren't in the sky, then your studio is probably gonna die. This problem has been very quickly worsening over the past couple of years, but there's one notable company in the industry that we almost never hear of anything like this from: Nintendo. Granted, there are some laws in place in Japan that make it significantly less viable to lay off employees en masse, like we see gaming companies in the West do, but I digress. I think we can explain this contrast with Nintendo's approach to the console business, the Blue Ocean strategy. If you've been a part of the community on the internet for a while now, you've probably heard that term thrown around at least a couple times, but the definition might be lost on some people, and I didn't know entirely what it entailed until I did research for this video. But to put it most simply, in business, there's the concept of the red ocean as opposed to a blue ocean. The red ocean strategy is when a company tries to compete within an existing market and industry boundaries are defined and accepted. They try to tap into known consumer bases, but as a result of the already existing competition, they have to fight hard to yank away parts of the market share from their direct competitors. As the market space gets more and more crowded, profits and growth are reduced. I think that we can pretty confidently put Microsoft's situation under a red ocean strategy. Meanwhile, the blue ocean strategy focuses on industries that do not currently exist. They can also look for untapped market potential in a currently existing industry, looking to create demand rather than fight for it. There is ample opportunity for growth that is both profitable and rapid. Competition is relevant because the rules of the game are waiting to be set. And yeah, that seems to check every box for Nintendo, especially during the Switch era. Nintendo's always kind of been known for marching to the beat of their own drum, rather than directly fighting companies, and while it has come with some duds, it's also brought forth some major triumphs. It's a common narrative in the gaming community today that Nintendo doesn't really compete with Microsoft and Sony, but rather does their own thing. And while Microsoft and Sony are having their own kinds of struggles, particularly with putting many notable exclusives on their current-gen systems, Nintendo's been fine in this regard. Why is this though? Well, I've come up with 3 points of emphasis that resemble our earlier description of the Blue Ocean strategy that I think have helped make the Switch so successful. There's definitely a lot more factors. For example, I think some part of its success can be attributed to the spike during the pandemic, but I don't think part of the Blue Ocean strategy is to make the entire world shut down for over a year. Anyways, on to my 3 points of emphasis, the first of which being, the Switch was a whole unique, one-of-a-kind idea. I'm sure the idea of fusing a handheld and console gear had already existed for quite some time before the Switch was released, but Nintendo was the first to act on that idea and thus opened up potential for an entirely new market. A system that you can not only play on your TV, but on the go, and not just from 10 feet away. It's a gamer's dream. It's something that Nintendo's always really had a focus on, trying to find new ways for people to enjoy games, consistently looking to create that new demand, and while it's hit and miss, when it hits, boy does it hit. Adding on to this, because of its price, along with some of its exclusives, the Switch has set itself up as the perfect secondary system. Not that it can't be someone's primary system of choice, because it is for a lot of people, but by being a great second option as a system, it considerably lowers their need to directly compete with the R2 in my opinion, and carves out yet another niche of demand and market space. Because if you're a heavy PlayStation or Xbox fan and are looking for a second system, I imagine the Switch would be the more appealing option for a lot of them, not just because of its price, but because it's also something that separates itself. The second point I wanted to make was just how good of a job Nintendo has done to make the Switch appeal to as many people as possible. Like I mentioned earlier, the lower price of the Switch compared to its competition helps in making it more appealing, especially to more casual gamers, as it's a more financially accessible option and is further helped with having the Switch Lite, a cheaper, though also handheld only option. This is also reflected in the fact that the Switch has many different games, spanning across many different genres, that can be enjoyed by, you probably already know what I'm about to say, many different people. There's platformers, RPGs, racing games, sports games, shooters, fighting games, puzzle games. I could go on with the amount of genres that the Switch library represents. If you name it, the Switch most definitely has it. To make a point, right now, it seems as though there are so few exclusives on the Xbox Series that Wikipedia doesn't even have a category for it. At least the PS5 has that. The series was released on November 10th, 2020, or 1,277 days ago, as of the reading of the script. If we translate that same amount of days from the Switch's launch, then that would mean 34 of the games on the Switch Million Seller list had been released by that point. This leads into my third and final point. Nintendo is often more than content with hitting singles and doubles, instead of trying to constantly hit home runs. To better explain what I mean, let's go back into my earlier point with Microsoft. Microsoft often tries to consistently push for big, AAA titles that sell insanely well, and anything less than a home run is often considered a disappointment and puts you at risk. This may have to do in large part with the earlier fact from the Red Ocean description, where profits are more scarce. I'm willing to bet that a game like Hi-Fi Rush would have been welcomed by Nintendo, even if it didn't sell anything too crazy, like if it sold 2 to 3 million units, roughly the reported number of people who played Hi-Fi Rush. Nintendo realizes that there is still value in those games that sell 1 to 3 million units, and adds further depth to their library, which is something that Microsoft and Sony by comparison have really been starving for since their respective consoles launched. Fire Emblem was on the verge of being cancelled a little over a decade ago, and now it's a very popular second tier series for Nintendo, where you're not expecting anything crazy, sure, but you can't expect solid sales numbers. The list is long: Fire Emblem, Kirby, Pikmin, Xenoblade, the Mario spin-offs, Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, WarioWare, Yoshi, and a lot of other one-offs. And there have even been some series that started in that tier, but have now bursted on the scene to be considered in that upper echelon, most notably Animal Crossing, and Splatoon seems like the next IP to join that list, as right now I consider it to be in a tier of its own, as a hard triple in terms of sales numbers. I think one of the reasons why Nintendo is okay with these metaphorical singles and doubles is because they know they already have established home run series that will sell systems, such as Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, and Animal Crossing. They don't need the other games to be doing anything too crazy for sales, although it's certainly welcomed if they do. They just need them to be solid games that sell a good million or two, add to the library, and most importantly, not lose a ton of money. As I see it, Nintendo's approach, while it can lead to some disastrous failures in terms of consoles, has seemed the most stable to me in terms of the raw quantity at which they can produce solid sellers and reviewers. If Nintendo can fully master the Blue Ocean strategy and iron out other wrinkles within their company, then they'll be set for a long time. If they do indeed work towards that in the Switch 2 era, however, remains to be seen.